Good. Today we're doing graph linear inequalities in two variables, section 5.6, part 2.
Wow.
Thank you.
Very well done.
I hope you don't
Thank you. All right, so guys, on your notes, right? These steps are going to be the same as yesterday. Same exact steps we did yesterday. So it's going to we're going to write them down, because it's good to write them down, and also it'll be like a little bit of a review as well. All right? So, does anybody remember from yesterday, if we're going to graph a linear inequality, what's the first thing we have to do? Valerie?
make sure it's in y class.
Okay. Yeah, make sure it's in y equals mx plus b. Nice job with that your notes from yesterday. That's good. All right? So yes, make sure it's in y equals mx plus b. All right? All right, so we want to make sure it's in y equals mx plus b.
Gotcha, pal.
I don't do that.
Guys, for the remember thing, don't worry about that. I don't have to write anything for that. I don't know why that was there.
Remember?
All right. Well, I
Remember
think the reason why we put that was, guys, yesterday, everything we did was already in y equals mx plus b. The stuff we do today will not.
Do you want to just say remember, get y by itself?
Yeah, we can say remember.
Make sure y is alone.
Tell me now. Right now. Why do you
Right. So we want to make sure that y is alone.
Does anybody have an eraser on the board?
All right. So first thing, we want to make sure it's in y equals mx plus b. Next thing we have to do. Josiah?
You find the y-intercept and then you put it on, no, you find the b,
Right.
and
The
then
b,
you put it
which
on the
which is the
y-intercept.
good.
And then you put it on the graph.
Exactly. Very good. So like Josiah said, graph the b, which is the y-intercept, and we're going to graph that on the y-axis. All right? How are we going to know what the y-intercept is just looking at the inequality? Josiah?
Because your equation should be y equals mx plus b.
Okay. So where should it?
After the plus sign.
Yeah, after or the minus sign. All right. So basically, it's going to be the thing. It'll be the whatever term in the problem that doesn't have any variable. It'll just be a plain old letter, a number rather. It'll just be a regular number. It'll have a plus. Like Josiah said, it might have a plus next to it. It might have a minus next to it. All right. So we're going to graph the b first, the y-intercept on the y-axis. All right. After that, Jack. After that, what do we have to do? So we've graphed the y-intercept now, right? What will we use next in the problem? So we have the y-intercept. What's the other thing that we have in the problem? Or the inequality? The slope, right? Jack, how do we know what number in the problem is the slope? It's next to the x. Very good. All right? So from the y-intercept, we'll use the slope, or the m, to graph another point. Right? So from wherever we are, that's what that slope's going to tell us to do. If the slope is 2, what are we going to do? If the slope is 2.
Up 2 and over 1.
Maybe be more specific with over. What direction?
Like this way.
What is that way?
Right.
Yeah. So we'll go up 2. We'll go up 2 right. We'll go up 2 right 1. What if the slope was Connor? What if the slope was negative? Huh?
It would be on the x-axis.
No. Wouldn't change what axis it's on. If the slope was negative. If it's positive, Josiah just told us we go up. Like it's negative.
You go down.
We go down, and then what direction?
To the right.
to the right, always down to the right. Good job, Connor, always down to the right. Even if it's negative, we're not gonna go left, we still go down and then to the right. All right, so from the y-intercept, use the slope to graph another point. All right? Like we just talked about. And guys, you have the bullets on there. If you know this, you don't have to put it. If you want to put it to remind yourself, you can. All right?
But the bullets are for number 4.
Oh, the bullets are
Yeah.
for number 4?
It's kind of confusing.
Okay.
I feel like they should be on 3.
You don't have, guys, you don't have to put that down if you don't want to. I mean, we talked about it a little bit yesterday. If you want to add that to the bullets for step 4, you can. But again, we talked about that a little bit yesterday.
Go get a cheeseburger.
All right. So again, if you guys want to write this is under step 4 for whatever reason. I don't know what happened. But again, positive slope up to the right, negative slope down to the right. Capiche? Capiche. Are we good to go to step 4?
Yeah.
All right. So now we know it's in y equals mx plus b. We've graphed our y-intercept. We've graphed our slope. What are we going to do now? X?
Draw the lines.
Draw our line. Let's see. I think it says that.
Well, is it going to be dotted?
So look at the inequality sign to see what type of line to draw. Solid or dotted. And again, we're not going to do that whole chart over again from yesterday. You guys have that. We're not going to do that again because you already have it from yesterday's notes. All right. So I'll give you guys a few seconds to get this written down. Again, none of this. The only thing different that we're going to do today is just really get y by itself. Right? Make sure it's in slope-intercept. Other than that, this process in terms of graphing it, dotted, solid, shading, all that stuff, that doesn't change. Just because it's not in y equals mx plus b, it's not going to change how you go through the whole process. All right?
Well, doesn't it kind of, because then we won't know where like everything is?
No, everything will still work the same. You're
then
gonna
how
Josiah, you're
will I
gonna do a
know
little
where
bit of work. You have to do a little bit of work before you graph.
But then how will I know where the B is? Because the B is usually after the.
We're gonna rearrange stuff to get in.
Oh.
That's all. All right. So look at the sign. Somebody refresh my memory. How do we know when to draw a solid? How do we know when to draw a dot? Joe.
What's it called? If it's less than or equal to. The less than sign of it, less than or equal to sign, it's a no. They're both dotted, aren't they? No, the less than sign's dotted, and then the
Regular less than. Yeah. Regular less than and greater than dotted. What about solid?
the solid is the less than or equal to. Right?
Yeah, it has a line underneath, right? Dotted, just a regular plain old less than, greater than, and then solid would be with the line underneath. All right? And again, we had that in our graph yesterday. Now, last thing, we'll look at the inequality sign to see where to shade. All right? Are we going to shade above? Are we going to shade below? All right? Remember from yesterday, guys, if it's an X only, like X greater than 4, that's when we
Not
get.
on the homework.
Huh? Yeah, we had one like that in the homework. Yeah. That's a real special case because above or below doesn't work. You have to look left or right. You can't go above or below because you'd be shading over the line or shading over the graph. All right? So again, all these steps are exactly the same from yesterday. So how do we know when to shade above and when to shade below?
What do you mean?
Like, when would I shade above the line? What sign would I have, Joe?
The shape above the line, it would be the greater than,
Yeah.
or the greater than or equal.
Greater than equal to? What about below, Savannah?
Less than.
And like someone said yesterday, right? Here's our greater than or equal to. Here's our less than, here's our less than or equal to. All right? Look where the arrow's pointing, to the right. They're both pointing to the right. All right? You could also say, it almost looks like if your line we don't really want to talk about that. It's not going to make any sense. Never mind. I don't want to do that. I don't want to screw you guys up. All right? But again, Remember, this is greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. All right, guys, on your notes, we're going to go right to example number 3, the word problem. That way we can get it out. That way you guys are like, because a lot of the other stuff is going to be kind of somewhat review for you guys. But the word problem, we want to make sure we do it first, so you guys are kind of fresh and focused, as opposed to here, because there will be a word problem on the test on Friday.
Please don't do that.
Test on Friday, 10 questions.
10?
Yeah.
But when there's a little bit, I like it when there's a lot of questions, because then when I get one wrong, it's not as effective.
But again, Mr. Hager and I are pretty good about it. Like if you set it up right, or maybe you make a little mistake but you graph it correctly. We'll stick with. We're good about like if you think we're really good about giving you guys points. All right. Like very rarely do we mark something like totally wrong. We try to give you points. All right. So guys, example 3, the word problem. We'll do that one first.
Mr. Ward, you want me?
I hate word problems.
They are really scary.
No, they're hard. I don't know if they're.
All right. So the hardest thing with the word problem is not like the solid and dotted and then the shading. It's figuring out what the equation is first. So we're going to just try to go through carefully and kind of circle the things that are important here. So let me read the first sentence. You can spend at most $10 on grapes and apples because we're making a fruit salad. What do you think is important in that sentence?
$10.
$10.
And most.
Okay? Yeah, and we can spend at most. So if we have at most $10 to spend, what does that mean?
Like $10 is the limit.
$10 is the limit, right? You could spend $9, you could spend $8, but $10 is as high as you can spend.
Equal to or less than 10?
Yes, what we can spend is less than or equal to 10. Yep. Maybe for letters, grapes and apples, what do we want to use to represent grapes?
G.
Okay, we could use G if you wanted to use X. We could use X and Y too.
No.
We've always used X and Y, so why don't we stick with those two? So let's just do it right in that order. X, Y. Okay? If you wanted to use like G for grapes and A for apple, that's okay too. All right. So grapes cost $2.50 a pound. Apples cost $1 a pound. Anything that's important in that sentence? Yeah?
How much it costs per pound?
Yep. How much do you pay per pound for grapes? How much do you pay per pound for apples? Now I think we're done. We have everything important circled. Now we have to write our inequalities. Okay? And then after we write them, we can graph them. All right, so Josiah, what did you say? What we spend has to be what?
Less than or equal to 10.
So I'm just going to write that idea down. What we spend has to be less than or equal to 10. We can't spend more than 10. All right. So we can spend it, let's see, grapes. Right, so what we're measuring here is the amount of pounds of we're buying. Not necessarily how many grapes and apples, but how many pounds of grapes, how many pounds of apples. So X is pounds of grapes. Okay, I'm just going to copy that down over here. Pounds of grapes. And Y, pounds of apples. Okay, just to make it clear what's what. Okay, how much are grapes per pound? Yep, $2.50. Now, what if you bought 2 pounds of grapes? What would you do with 2 and $2.50?
Even up to
$5.
Multiply them, right?
Yeah.
So what if you buy X pounds of grapes and each pound is $2.50?
We'd have to plug in for X. to
You
find out how
put
many pounds.
250x.
250X.
I don't get it. Like, it doesn't tell you how much you buy.
Oh, yeah.
That's why it's a variable, because we don't know, so we just leave it as X. The 2 things you have to find is how many
We're not
pounds of
even
grapes.
solving, we're just plugging in so we can
We're
do
just
the
sending it out
graph.
first, yes.
But
Oh.
I don't.
We don't even have to solve, we just have to make the equation so we can do the graph.
All right, but that's not all we spend. We're not just spending money on grapes. What else are we buying?
Apples.
Apples. So if we're gonna buy apples, how much are apples?
$1.
Dollar
Plus
plus
one
plus
line.
one.
So be plus.
So they're $1 a pound times how many pounds of apples are we gonna buy?
You don't know.
Why? Right, we don't know. It's why.
It does work if you just do 2 pounds of grapes and 5 pounds of apples.
Now, that's how many pounds, that's how much we're gonna spend on grapes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's how much we're gonna spend on apples. What do we do with the two?
You add them.
We add them. So this part right here is what we're gonna spend. That's how much we spend on grapes. That's how much we spend on apples.
Okay, now we can.
Yeah, but you don't.
No, but then now it's not in Y.
It's not in Y.
Right, it's not in y equals mx plus b form, but the hard part is done. It's set up. We've set it up. We're done. Any questions on how we set that up?
Can you save that for your second?
Now, Joe, what did you say? It's not what?
It's not in Y equals MX plus B form.
Right.
So then now we have to just.
So let's just write it like this.
Because I think someone said it, you don't have to solve it.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah.
Oh,
Does everyone agree that that's the same thing?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah, because 1Y, we usually don't count that.
We usually don't put the 1 in front. So now, like Joe said, we just have to get y by itself. So what do we have to move?
The 250.
How do we move the 250?
Minus
So you would subtract.
Minus it? Minus it? What's on the left-hand side now?
Just Y.
Y.
the negative
Right, infinity,
2.5x
less than equal to.
Negative 2.5x
plus 10.
plus 10. There's your equation. Our inequality. Now we're ready to graph. Okay, so from here it should be okay. But any questions on how we got what's in that box?
Okay, I'm looking
Yeah.
So like, would you just, like the inequality sign, would you just consider it an equal
You
sign?
do exactly like it's an equal
Yeah.
sign.
Like
Yep.
we said yesterday.
In this particular
Because the word
problem.
problem doesn't change how you do it.
Okay, any other questions on that? All right, now let's look at it. So to graph it, what do I do first? I have y, and then I have negative 2.5x plus 10.
at. Well, it's already in the form, so you don't have to check for that. So
Yep,
you
you got it
go
in the form.
to B,
Okay,
the y-intercept, and then you go to 10.
all right. And then what?
You make a dot.
Make a dot.
And then, well, now this part's kind of tricky because then you'd have negative 2.5 over 1.
Exactly. So that means down 2.5, and then,
But that's kind of weird to put a decimal over like a fraction. That's kind of weird.
well, we can still go down 2.5 though, right?
Yeah.
So we just go down 1, 2.5,
Yeah.
and then over 1.
I don't like it
Oh, so
though,
like
because it's not actually exact, so you can't like.
Right, you just do the best you can.
Well, graph is never exact.
And then what do I do from this dot?
You keep going until you don't want to.
Okay, so what would I do? Go down
2.5.
1, 2
And
and a
then
half.
you go over 1. And then, yeah, you make another.
I could do it one more time.
Yeah.
1. I'm probably gonna run out of space pretty soon. 1, 2.5 over 1.
You can do it one more.
I can do it exactly one more time. 1, 2.5, 1. Okay, so I got my dots. What do I have to decide now?
Dotted or straight?
Dotted or straight?
It's
Dotted or like,
solid.
Solid.
It's solid.
I don't know.
So which one is this? Dotted or solid?
Solid.
How come?
Because it's a greater than or equal to. I mean, less than or equal to.
Because it has the e. It's a less than, but yeah, it has the equal to. So put your solid line. Probably about like that.
You shade and below. Shade. Oh my god, shade and below.
Shade below. So to shade it, let's just
That's not a lot to shade.
no, just kind of try to stay neat inside it.
You're so cute.
Okay, so those, all that shaded stuff is, that's the answer to what you could afford to buy to make this salad. So now it says,
Well, yeah, because there's so many ways you could do it.
right, we just want to know what's 2 ways you could make the salad with the amount of money you have.
Can we pick two, like any ones we want?
And you can use the ones on the line too, right?
You can use the ones right on the line. So someone,
Wasn't there a case where we couldn't, or was the case where we could?
if the line was dotted, yes. So somebody give me one combination of grapes and apples you could afford based on this, yep?
2 pounds, whatever you talking,
2 pounds of grapes, okay?
and then 5 pounds of apples.
So 2 pounds of grapes. And what did you say for how many pounds of apples?
5.
Let's see, 2, 5, yep. It's just barely, you have exactly enough money to buy that. You're gonna be right on the line. 2 pounds of grapes, 5 pounds apples.
Yes.
Would you rather grapes?
Okay, can somebody give me one more combination of grapes and apples you could afford? Let's not make it right on the line.
So we can pick anything.
I got
right?
one.
Yeah,
Anything in the shaded area.
shaded.
If you go outside the shaded area, you're gonna spend more than $10, you don't have that much to spend.
So, it's basically when we answer this, it could be anything.
Could be, there's anything.
Yeah.
Oh,
I bet you have so many different
Joe?
combinations.
So, it could be 1 pound of grapes and then 7.5 pounds of apples.
So 1 pound of grapes,
Yes, and then 7.5 pounds of apples.
and you could do 7, let's do a little bit less just so we have a little money.
7.25.
Can we do 4?
Or
Sure.
do 3 pounds of grapes and
Why don't we
2.5
do-
pounds.
We could do 1 pound of
5
grapes
pounds of apples.
and 4 pounds of apples. You could do 5 pounds of apples.
We could do so much.
Yep. So
For sure.
1 pound of grapes, 4 pounds of apples. And if you did that, would you have money left?
Yeah.
You'd have a little bit of money
Buy
left.
50-cent candy bar.
Yeah, you have a little bit left.
Eat a Snickers.
What would happen if you bought something out here?
You
You're
go
over and
You're over how
call the
much?
cops and they'd be
You're
like, why
over-
can't you pay for your food?
That doesn't happen one.
Yeah, it does.
You're
And then
over
they
like
don't
a
pay
pound.
for their food. You don't have enough money to do that, so you get arrested for trying to steal.
So how much money do we only have?
we only
They
have
would not let you
$10.
take the
We only have $10.
Why? It's my food.
You get arrested.
Put the
I cleaned those grapes.
All right, so guys, any questions on
Questions on
the word
Yeah, there
problem?
will be a word problem on the test.
But
Obviously,
when you guys do it with us, it's
Is
so
it gonna
much
be as simple as
simpler.
this?
It's gonna be the same type,
Give
yep.
us the answers.
it's gonna be one of the homework too.
Please tell me there's no decimals.
Not sure
Oh,
why
you're
Might
not.
be.
If there's a decimal, it's not gonna be bad. It's gonna be like a
It's gonna be a
0.5.
half.
Okay.
It won't be like 0.75, 0.25. If there is a decimal, it'll be a half.
Okay. I think I'm ready for it, but then the day comes. And I have to-
Let's go back, you guys, go back to the front side. Example 1A.
So we did the hardest one.
Yeah, hardest one first.
I played
Why don't we play review games?
Bounce a little bit.
Why
I just
don't we
moved that
play
one.
review games?
Oh, you moved that up, okay. Alright, so guys, listen, this is what we did yesterday. So, on your own, graph this, shade it, and put your line. Alright, on your own. So we did this yesterday. This should be a review. If you're not sure, look at your notes from yesterday. Alright, so guys, when I walked around, everybody had this.
Stop touching.
Oh, please don't ever say that.
My line's not perfect, that's okay.
There's a couple kids on my team.
Is it really?
Because you're just they'd be like, oh my god, you saw it.
No, I'm not.
So guys, when I walked around,
That's a good shading.
This is not, that is great. That is how I color.
yeah, again, it's not perfect, but guys, when I walked around, I saw this from the majority of people. Now listen,
Wow, that's
like I told you yesterday, all right? Like I told you yesterday. If you're not sure, I'll say it again. Graph this number on this axis. This number on this axis and draw your line opposite.
That's what I was.
I graphed 4 on the y-axis. The y-axis goes up and down. I drew my line opposite. Y-axis is vertical. I drew my line horizontal. Everybody got it?
Ooh,
Yes.
get all professional.
Everybody got it? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Next, I missed one.
No, was that?
Feel alright?
You just choke him.
Guys, do this one now.
Except, okay.
Oh, guys, let's go over this one. All right, so when I walked around, for the majority of the people, this is what I saw. I saw a dot on -3.
What's your friend's name?
Should I can do mistake? I'll get fancy too.
I thought you were
Hey.
I was like, where did you
Librarian, I want to
Hey, Jordan, bring it up.
I got it in a gum pack.
Oh, dude.
You didn't get me up or
Good,
down
we'll
or
go.
shit with your leg. Ooh, Mr. Roy's being technical. Oh, Mr. Roy.
Oh, come on, you gotta color it in.
I'm hungry.
All right, so again, guys, this is what it should look like. All right, again, graph this number, -3 on this axis, the x-axis. Draw your line opposite, right? The x-axis is horizontal. You want to draw your line vertically.
Where's the dot, Mr. Roy?
I heard you, Joe.
You're like undoing it.
What did you say?
I just heard a secret.
No, I said you
How's that? How's that, guys? Guys, I wanna listen. I wanna allow Mr. Hager does too. I wanna allow you guys to work on your own. But when we come back and go over stuff, we can't have this much like. And again, don't get me wrong. You guys did really well on the last 2 problems. And most of you guys got them right, which is cool. I want to kind of do the rest of the lesson like this. But if I have a hard time getting you guys back, like to pay attention, then I'm gonna stand up here and talk. No one wants that, right? Especially when you know how to do most of this stuff. So let's just keep doing it that way. But if it takes me forever to get you guys' attention, then we'll stop. All right. And again, guys, most of you guys did really well with this. Nice job. All right. Let's try it now. The example, okay, this one, you can do, this is review of yesterday. You can do this. I'll give you one hint. Stop throwing stuff around.
Someone threw you.
I almost said it, but I didn't. I can finish my sentence.
Wait, what did you say?
Whoa.
So good, guys, all I'm gonna do is this, I'm gonna graph this. You got, as I walked around, most people got this right. Put that away.
What?
What are you gonna do, like a whole grocery bag full of food?
That's what I said.
What are you going to market that before you come to school?
She like pulled that.
She could just say
What do you want to be called, Sarah? I'm just gonna start calling you Market Basket. I'm gonna call you MB, Market Basket, MB. More for your dollar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right.
Are you good, bro? I'm imitating her.
That doesn't happen. It was so funny because your hair shakes.
All right. Cool.
No.
Mr. Hager will do it. He's good at this part.
Dotted back. Please say much.
Yep.
It's not.
Even though I
Good.
already have this going on.
There it is. We'll do a quick shading.
No, Joe does not say. Give me gum.
Oh yeah, I didn't got it.
Joe's
Librarian, give me gum.
And again, guys, as we walk around, most people got this right. Nice job. 5 people talking while I'm talking.
You're still hungry
You're
after the
not.
whole market basket?
Why are you talking while I'm talking? All right, good. Example 2A, again, just so the first 3, besides the word problem, the last 3 we've done are all a review of yesterday. Now, the next thing we do, I don't want you to lose your minds. I'll help you with the first part, but then once we do that, you can do the rest.
No, I do it.
Because once we do the first, well, there'll be 2 of them. All right, the first one, I'll help you with the first part, and then you'll graph. The next one we do after that, you guys will just do the whole thing.
I thought
Wait,
this
we
was
try it all
what
by
we're doing.
ourselves?
I was so
You
happy.
try it all by yourself.
No.
It's not, Josiah, it's nothing, it's one little part you have to do. As far as the process of graphing, dotted, solid, all that's the same. All right? Relax.
something you've done before.
It is, right? It probably is. All right, let's look at
Yeah.
2B. Now remember, that first step on the directions we wrote down today, on the directions we wrote down yesterday, what was that first step?
Make sure get Y by itself. Yeah.
Get y by itself.
You guys did this in the word problem. You had to get y by itself.
Is y by itself in this inequality?
And it's not in Y equal X.
Exactly. All right. That's when y is not by itself, like Mallory just said. It's not in y equals mx plus b.
So how do you do it that way?
Okay. So this one, because this one's going to have 2 steps. All right. It's going to have 2 steps. It's going to have 2 steps because there's a number on the same side with the y, and there's also a number attached to y. Let me say it again. There's a number. Well, there's another variable besides y on the left-hand side. We have the 3x, and there's also a number attached to the y. So that will make this 2 steps. All right. So what's our first step going to be?
Well, can we?
Paige.
Subtract 3x to both sides.
Subtract 3x from both sides. Right? Mr. Hager put the goal right there. That's what we want to do. Minus 3x. Minus 3x.
That one cancels out.
This will cancel out.
Is this right?
On my left-hand side, Paige, what's left?
2y
2y. Ginny, what am I going to write next?
equals 5.
Huh?
Equals 5.
Not equals. Greater than or equal to.
That's right.
Now, the thing we write next is very important. What am I going to write next, Gemini?
Negative 3x.
Negative 3x, right? Because I want to get it in this order. So the x has to come after my sign. Right? All I'm doing is taking this and moving it to the other side. Remember, we can't combine these 2 things. What would the 8 have to be able to combine it? Have to have an x, right? It doesn't have an x. And this isn't a plain old 3. It has the x attached.
So where does the 8 go? Just disappears?
No.
No, you put it there to let us in y equals mx plus b form, but there's a 2 on the y side.
All right? So all we're doing is moving that x to the other side and just bumping the 8 over. Right? We're moving this over, and it's just going to bump. All right? Gemini.
Can I do the rest of this?
What am I going to put now?
Plus 8.
Plus 8. Again, even though there's no sign with the 8, you have to know that because there's no sign there, we have to assume that it's positive. That's why we put a positive 8.
That's kind of mean to the negative.
All right?
So just assume.
Gemini's going to give me the last step.
You have to divide everything by 2.
Divide everything by 2. All right, so we're getting there.
Getting
Divide by 2.
Getting there. Wait, what's happening? So it'd be, can I just say it?
Sure.
Okay, so it's going to be y is greater than or equal to negative 3 halves
Yeah.
x plus 4.
And there it is. So that right there,
Look at
again,
yourself.
guys,
That's
getting it from this to this, rearranging it is the only thing that's new. But back, I don't know when we did, might have been like maybe before Christmas, which was a long time ago. But back before Christmas, all right, we did linear equations with the equal sign. It's the same process, except it has an inequality sign. Yep.
We
All right.
did it.
This is what I do.
So again, guys, listen. If x and y, when we're doing these guys, graphing, when x and y are on the same side, move the x to after the sign, divide by the number with y. Let me say it again. Pay attention, Sophia. Stop talking to Noah. Noah, stop talking to Sophia. Noah, look at the board. All right? So, let me say it again. When x and y are on the same side, like they are here, all right, I want to move the x after the sign, slide the number over, and the next step, I'll just divide by the number with y. All right? If there's no number with y, it's just y, great. It's only one step. There's nothing to divide. Because if you divide it by 1, you end up getting the same thing. Divided by positive 1, you end up getting the same thing anyway. All right? So everybody's good with that. Makes sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Does this make sense?
I'm gonna cut what you're doing.
You have to do it.
All right. Now, at this point, I want to see you guys, because we've already done stuff like this before. I want you to graph it. I want you to draw your line correctly. And I want you to shade it.
No.
Somebody tell me, first thing I gotta do. Yep, Josiah.
You find B, and then you go to B on the graph.
Go to B on the y-axis and then put
A dot.
a dot. 1, 2, 3, 4.
And
Now.
then you go down to B and,
All right, yeah, Savannah, you wanna tell me the rest?
No.
No? Okay.
I
Gemini?
do.
No.
So you're gonna go down 3
Down 3,
and over to the right 2.
to the right 2.
You're
Okay.
just gonna keep repeating.
Yep, what I usually do is do it a couple times. Down 3, right 2, down 3, right 2, that's enough. All right. Solid or dotted?
Solid.
Solid. So put your line probably about like that. Shade above or below?
Above.
Above, right? Because it's greater than?
Yeah.
Greater than is above. So there's my shading.
I swear to God.
Okay, so just as a reminder, what that shading means, if you pick a
combination.
if you pick a point, like let's say you pick a point here, 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 over there, you can pick a point anywhere in that shaded area, and it will make this true. If you pick a point over here, nope, it would be false. Okay. All right. So the last one. Okay, last problem for today.
Dan, are you okay?
When you have an inequality, say you had something like this.
Oh my God, Fred.
Which one is this?
I'm just showing you something first, and then we'll do the last
Oh,
one.
I thought.
How would you get x by itself here?
Divide.
By divide by -2.
Yeah.
Now, does anybody remember what happens when you divide by a negative?
It turns
It
positive.
becomes a
You switch
positive.
the equality sign.
You have to flip the sign. Remember
Oh my
that?
God, my mind is blown.
So we did that.
I didn't like, because I never remembered to do it.
What you get? No, I was
You're one.
Okay, so that's the only thing you have to remember on the last problem. What's up, Noah? What are you doing,
Where's
Max?
Mr. Roy?
He left. He had to leave.
Wait, leave?
He's kind of going to come back in a little bit.
Is he a
baby's born.
Hey,
No, he
stay
was
strong,
not.
right?
Baby.
Are you in trouble?
Okay, so guys, I need you to remember, when you divide by a negative, you have to flip the sign. If you don't flip it, you're going to shade in the wrong spot. So this is going to be our last question. So do you guys have a remember?
Oh, that's what that remember was for, but I wrote it.
Well, right above it or below it. So remember, when you divide by a negative, flip the sign. You don't have to change anything else. That's the only thing that's different. Flip the
Are
sign.
we getting a reference sheet?
Yes.
Oh yeah, how am I supposed to finish that?
All right, so try to do this one. There's only one step you have to do to get y by itself, but it's going to involve this right here, dividing by a negative. So remember to flip the sign. Okay, so try that, see if you can graph it, and then Mr. Roy and I have a few practice problems, and if you finish those, you'll have time to start the homework in class. Because the next one is the word problem, and we already did it.
No.
This one, right?
If the arrow goes
What,
this way.
guys, I'm gonna go through this one a little bit. I'm gonna go through this one step by step because it has that negative in it.
So you're gonna divide by a -2.
Divide by -2, right?
And then you're gonna flip the inequality sign.
All right, and then
So
Fred, please pay attention. Thank you.
Stop being a snail.
I love you very dearly. Poor Fred is gonna call the snail. I'm sorry. That was very nice of you, or market basket. All right, so like Gemini just said, we divided by a negative. We have to flip the sign. So what is the sign here? What does that sign mean?
It means that you would shade below, but now we're gonna shade above.
Thank you, Mr. Fairbanks. At least one person was
I
listening.
literally
Yes.
saw it sound like 5.
I didn't hear. I'm sorry. I was just very excited that Fred said it. I'm sorry.
good job.
Sorry, John. All right. So yes, this means less than. So I want to make it greater than. What am I going to write here?
Y.
Negative 2x.
-4.
Excuse me,
Bam.
ma'am.
There it is. This one only, how come this one only had one step? As far as rearranging it, Mallory?
It was already in YX.
It was very close, right?
It was MX plus B.
It was very close, right?
Yeah, because you just needed to get the 2 away from the 1.
Yeah, we just need, the 2 was with, like Josiah just said. Do I have cats in this class? Alright, sounds like my house about 5 a.m. Cats wake me up. Alright, so yes, guys, with this. Thank you. Alright, so with this, guys, because we have the y's already by itself on the left-hand side. The only thing is, it's not isolated. There's a number attached. That's why there's only one step. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes. All right. So we do this, right? As far as graphing it, I'm not going to go super in depth with that because we've done that a bunch of times today. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll put a dot there. Whoa. Hey,
Oh my
get a little ahead of yourself there, buddy.
God.
It was -2, right?
I have a question. Do you know what the superintendent's dinner is about?
Yep, the circus.
Yeah, I
know that.
I made 12 posters.
It's literally
for it.
a bunch of like
It's for
wealthy people that come here and like
To help
don't.
seniors get started.
Yeah, it's $100.
Guys, in terms of the shading on this, above or below?
I get to choose here though.
It's oh, then why did that?
Say you're gonna shade it.
Yeah, it's
Look at that. Sophomores, juniors, and
Why not freshman?
Why is that one kid doing that?
I hope that's my child's in
All right. So
bright yellow.
I like juice.
as far as tonight, guys,
So please pay attention.
homework. I think it's only
7 questions.
6, maybe. I think.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Homework, 6 questions. Tomorrow, here's the plan. Nothing new tomorrow. Tomorrow we will review. Okay, Mr. Fairbanks? We'll do it. So here's the plan. Tomorrow, all right, for the first half of class, we'll give you guys the reference sheet. You can do it in class. I think 40 minutes should be enough for you guys to go back in your notes, find the examples you need, and fill out your reference sheet.
Yeah.
The first half of class will be that, and yeah, the second half of class will be some type of review, some type of game. We'll figure something out. All right. Remember, on Friday is your first test of 4th quarter.
Oh yes.
All right. Friday's your first test of 4th quarter. Remember, you're gonna have 2 weeks off. All right. Because we have vacation week. Then when you come back, it's a shop week. All right? So your next academic day is not until April 30th.